Coming up today on The Story.
We've met Satanists who have given their lives to Christ. And we've met people who are atheists and Satanists who are still atheists and still Satanists that are Stryper fans. So, my hopes and prayers are that maybe in some small way or some big way, we're having a positive effect on them, maybe tugging at their hearts and they're hearing the message, because our message is very clear.
The Story.
G'day, I'm Jimmy Colefax. Welcome to The Story. Well, a special one for you today as Eric Scatterbo has a chat with Michael Sweet, who's the voice of the legendary Christian heavy metal band Stryper. He'll share with us some of the ups and downs of his life journey, including the positive impact Stryper's had on many non-Christian listeners. Also, Michael will share about some of the personal struggles he's gone through. All that and more is coming up today on The Story.
Michael Sweet, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Glad to have you with us. And where are you joining us from today?
I am outside of Boston, Massachusetts, in the good old U.S. of A., and I live in a town called Plymouth, Massachusetts.
Okay, well, we want to find out about your current activities and your solo acoustic tour, but first we want to find out a little bit about your background and the Michael Sweet story. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Whittier, California, 1963, July, and I was raised primarily in California. We moved back to Oklahoma when I was a kid, when I was in the third grade. My mom was originally from that area, and my dad worked for the railroad, Southern Pacific, and he was relocated, so we went there. Mm-hmm. And then about a little over a year later, went back to California, and I stayed in California until moving to Massachusetts in 1995 with my family. And I've been here ever since 1995.
Okay, and getting back to your childhood, you played music with your brother?
My brother's a drummer, yeah. I joined his band when I was 12 years old, believe it or not.
Wow, going way back.
Way back. And he was looking for a singer. My dad kept saying, you should try audition your brother. He finally did. He's 3 years older than me, so when I was 12, he was 15. So he was much older and more mature and into different things and whatnot, but he auditioned me and it worked, and the rest is history, I guess, as they say.
Wow. And was faith a part of your family growing up?
It was. We actually came to know the Lord through Jimmy Swaggart.
Oh, okay.
And we would watch him on television, and then we all said the sinner's prayer right in front of the television. Then we found a church and got into a church and went to church every Sunday and sometimes Wednesday evenings and Sunday evenings. And then, music started kind of pulling me away and pulling me out of church and taking me somewhat in a different direction, different path of my faith. And I got involved in the whole rock scene and everything that goes along with that. And then, fast forward to the age of 20, I accepted Christ when I was 12, and then at the age of 20, rededicated my life. And that's when we became Stryper, and we dedicated the band to God as well.
Now, were you already kind of in the rock music scene at that time before you rededicated your life?
Oh, yeah. We were out playing all the clubs in L.A., Whiskey A Go-Go, Troubadour, Gazzarri's, and we were caught up and involved in that scene basically 100%. What I mean by that is drinking and smoking and, all the stuff that goes along, the cliche stuff that, they say goes along with that, it does. And we let it, unfortunately, consume us and got caught up in that, and we just got tired of it. Early on, having known God and had a relationship with God, we pulled ourselves and got out of that scene at an early age. Again, I was 20 years old when I rededicated my life and decided to take a different path. And no looking back ever since. I'm 56 now, and there's been no regrets whatsoever.
So it wasn't just you, it was the other members of the group as well.
Yeah, my brother, who's the drummer. So the two of us, and then Oz Fox, who is his name is Richard Martinez. He became Oz Fox, and he rededicated his life with us because he was also raised in a Christian family as well, Christian home as well. And then when we started looking for a bass player, we found Timothy Gaines, who was also raised in a Christian home. His dad was a minister, and he left his band to devote his life to God and met us and joined our band, who decided to, as a band, devote our band to God. So it was really, really interesting and very cool how it worked out.
Yeah. Now, normally when somebody becomes part of a Christian group, they kind of leave the nightclub scene and go into playing churches. But I understand you kind of did things differently. Is that right?
Yeah, not to disrespect anyone that does that or take anything away from it, but, our calling was the complete opposite. Mm-hmm. It was to take the message to the clubs and into the world. I never really understood, if you want to reach people, you got to get out of the church and go outside the church, and that's the way we've always thought. So it's still to this day we play clubs, we play regular rock shows with other rock bands, mainstream, secular, as you might say, rock bands, and that's been our calling. That's kind of what we do. We're not a church band. We're not a band that goes around and plays churches all the time. And we do on occasion, but for the most part, no.
And so you had tremendous crossover appeal. I mean, you went on tour with big secular groups like Judas Priest. Is that right?
Well, we toured with a number of bands. Never toured with Judas Priest, but Priest has always been one of our favorite bands, musically speaking. And the crossover appeal with Stryper, I think, lies in the fact that we were with a label that understood us and had a vision for the band. And we grew up in a rock scene, so we kind of continued that thinking in our ministry as well, with the look, with the sound, with the way we present ourselves. And I think we were able to relate to a lot of kids at the time. And kids that liked Motley Crue understood Stryper.
So you had a lot of non-Christians listening to your music.
Oh, yeah. 2/3 of our sales over the years throughout time have been through mainstream.
And you also had that kind of 80s heavy metal look with the hair and the eyeliner. Is that right?
Yep. We wore, actually, I should say, quite a decent amount of makeup, not as much as some other bands at the time, Poison and some other bands had a lot more makeup than we had on. But again, that was part of the look. That was who we were, and we weren't doing it to be fake or phony. It was our lifestyle. It's who we were. And the clothes, we had our own look regarding our clothes, yellow and black. And, that was something that started before we were Stryper. And, we continued on with that once we became Stryper. As a matter of fact, the name came from that because everything was striped already.
Oh, okay.
So when we were trying to come up with a new name, Stryper was just a no-brainer because everything was yellow and black striped.
You're listening to The Story. Today, Eric Scatterbo is chatting with Michael Sweet, the voice of the legendary Christian heavy metal band Stryper. We'll hear more of his story when we return.